Do the things you once enjoyed, your work, your hobbies, socializing, now just feel empty? In men, this is the most common sign of becoming numb to pleasure. Today, I want to share why that happens, what it looks like in your brain, and how I got my joy back after being in this state for 2 decades. I've also made a free quiz to really understand the root cause of this numbness in men. Do check it out below. Let's start with why you even feel empty and numb. I was once in a consultation call with a guy who was sharing with me his experience of how he had no pleasure or motivation in his life. He felt no drive or motivation to study for his exams on which his entire life depended, even though he desperately wished that he felt like studying. All he would do most of his days was scroll shorts on his phone, and that too, he said, was becoming boring for him. He just wanted to reach a point in his life where he would find joy or pleasure in the activities that would be good for him, like studying or working out. Can you relate with him? What he was going through was a condition called anhedonia in psychology. Anhedonia is a combination of two Greek words, an meaning without and hedon meaning pleasure. So anhedonia basically means inability to feel pleasure. As a guy who experienced similar numbness for 20 years of my life, these were some of my common symptoms. My life was mostly devoid of emotions, not only the pleasant ones like joy and excitement, but also the unpleasant ones like sadness and hurt. I struggled with motivation and pursuing any type of long term meaningful goals. I found it extremely difficult to connect with others and would frequently want to socially isolate. I really had no sense of identity, who I am, or what my purpose is. But why did I or men even feel this way? Anhedonia is caused by a dysfunction of a chemical called dopamine in the brain. Now, if you're going, oh, I've heard about dopamine, I know all about it, I've done all the detoxes, hold your horses. I can guarantee you've not heard of these aspects of dopamine in context of numbness. So, hear me out. Dopamine essentially is responsible for three things in your brain. The first is it creates pleasure. You have cake, it feels yum and pleasurable because of the instant release of dopamine. The second is it makes you crave that thing which caused pleasure. So now you want more of that cake. The third is reinforcement of the behavior that creates pleasure and craving, which means you are more likely to go to the bakery, buy and eat a cake. Now, let me ask you a very important question because when you understand this, everything changes. What even is the difference in the brains of men who naturally seem to feel really alive and excited by life, and you who feels numb and empty? Back when I was in high school, there was this guy, let's call him Bunty. And Bunty was basically good at everything. He was charismatic, he was good with girls, he had a good build, so he was probably hitting the gym. He topped his class in grades. And oh, by the way, because all of that, he was also the head boy of the school. I, on the other hand, had average grades, was shit with women, and was a skinny ass dude with no charisma. I low key envied Bunty a lot because he was just better than me. We all have someone like Bunty in our lives. So, what's the difference between people like him and me back then? It's really simple if you think about it. People who are excited by life derive pleasure from things that most people would consider hard. And I'll share how you can reach that point in a minute. But when Bunty would study, work out, eat healthy, he would feel a lot of pleasure, which made him crave those things and do them again. As he made more progress, this made his life more exciting as opposed to me, who didn't feel much pleasure in most of those activities. So I simply didn't feel like doing them again, which made my life even more dull and boring. That is how anhedonia turns your life black and white. But there's a simple mindset switch which can instantly change how much dopamine you get out of hard activities, change how you feel about them, and bring joy back to your life. Here's what it is. What I'm about to share with you will blow your mind away because that's what happened with me when I learned it from one of Dr. K's videos. So, shout out to him. And let me explain this with a personal example. Since the last 7 years, I've been on the journey to improve my social skills by approaching people on the street. And I'll share two extreme instances. Day one, I go out, say hi to three women on the street. They don't really entertain me, and I feel like a failure. Bad experience. Day two, I go out and I say hi to three women again. They don't really they don't really entertain me, and I feel on top of the world. Super pleasurable experience that I want to repeat. What's the difference? I took the same amount of action, got the same exact results. Why is there a difference between how much pleasure or dopamine I got out of it? It was because of my expectations. Here's what I mean by that. On day one, I had this expectation of meeting a girl and, let's say, exchanging numbers with her. Now my brain sees that and goes, okay, I have to take 4 steps to reach the final goal, the finishing line. So I will give him the full dopamine only when he reaches his final goal. But when I said hi and the girl brushed me off, my brain saw that as 1/4 of progress and only gave me 25% of dopamine. On day two, on the other hand, I already was feeling like shit. So before I went out, I was having zero expectations from myself, and any action was already beyond the finishing line. So when I just said hi, my brain gave me the full 100% of dopamine, which felt good, and I wanted to repeat the behavior. That's when I learned just by ordering to expect from an activity, you can extract more pleasure out of it, no matter how hard it seems. But that sounds a bit vague, so in the next section, I'll share the exact steps to use this mindset and get the most juice out of this life. For the mindset to be effective and for you to derive more pleasure from difficult things, you must have enough dopamine in your brain. Lowering expectation without good baseline dopamine levels would be the equivalent of trying to take out water of a dried up well. So here's the 80-20 of increasing baseline dopamine. 4 steps which are so simple that most people neglect them and focus on complex things like detoxes and supplements. But just following these gave me 90% of the results with respect to increasing my pleasure and joy. The first one goes back to the foundations, but is the single most powerful thing you can do, not only for your dopamine levels, but also your overall health. Nothing even comes close to it. That is good quality sleep. The best change I made was having a fixed sleep schedule plus or minus 30 minutes. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep at the same time every day, including the weekends. And I protect it at any cost because I know how crucial it is. Second is getting morning soon as I wake up for 5 to 15 minutes. It's a non-negotiable for me because of the benefits it has on my mood, for my brain, and energy levels. Third is also something basic, but if you stick to it, it will transform your mood, excitement, and joy in life, which is regular exercise. You don't have to lift weights for 2 hours daily in the gym. Even 30 minutes of brisk walk does the trick. On my journey to heal numbness, I discovered that movement is medicine, not just with respect to dopamine, but also how I felt on an average. And the final one was reducing overstimulation. Blasting yourself with hyper edited shots will naturally dry up your dopamine pool and make everything feel boring. And tiny steps go a long way, replacing shorts with long form with movies, movies with reading, reading with staring at a wall, and staring at a wall to staring inside. That is meditation. Notice where you're at and see how many levels forward you can go. I know it's easier said than done, but it'll be easier when doing productive stuff starts feeling fun again. Now that you have enough dopamine in your brain, here are 2 simple steps to get the most juice out of your life. The first one is simply focusing on one thing at a time, but not in the way everyone says. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm writing a script for one of my YouTube videos and I worry about my career, my relationships, my finances, the plan I have with my friends over the weekend. That saps any pleasure from the process of writing. Why? Similar to how having bigger criteria of success during approach caused my brain to extend the finishing line and give me less dopamine out of just a high. When I focus on multiple areas of my life, my brain considers all of that as the final goal, the finishing line. And then let's say all of that adds up to 100. Writing the script is only fraction of that work. So my brain now gives me 100 of pleasure. As opposed to if I was completely focused on just writing the script, the finishing line is pretty short and the dopamine I get out of the process is, let's say, 1/5. And that is much more pleasurable. This step is not just based on neuroscience and validated by my personal experience, but it is also the core philosophy of Zen Buddhism. Being completely present and mindful to what you're doing in the moment, according to Zen masters, increases the joy you experience from that activity. The way you do this is by training your brain. Every time you're doing something and your brain wanders, that's natural. There's nothing wrong with it per se. Your job is to bring it back to the task and exclusively focus on completing it. Almost like a meditation. You notice a thought and you bring your attention back to your breath. It's not easy, but it gets easier with time. And gradually it becomes your second nature. And then hard things start becoming exciting again, making your life full of pleasure and joy. The second one is having insignificant goals. Here's what I mean by that. This one's really easy. You take a big task you have to do and you have to complete, and you chop it down into very small finishing lines. Let's say my task is to upload this video, which requires scripting, recording, editing, and uploading. When I am scripting, I don't focus on uploading this entire video. In fact, I don't even focus on finishing the entire script. I break down scripting into three parts: first, second, and third draft. And that gives me the most dopamine out of the process of writing. You can apply these two steps to any long-term pursuits. For example, if you have to lose 10 kgs, when it's time to work out, focusing on the end goal of how much work you have to do to lose 10 kgs extends your finishing line. Instead, focus on just the workout. I don't need to focus on the entire 1 hour workout, but just think about entering the gym. And then while working out, I exclusively focus on the exercises as opposed to every other area of my life that needs to be fixed. And these tiny changes in multiple pursuits of your life will cause a ripple effect that will make your entire life exciting again. But anhedonia in men inability to feel pleasure is only a subset to men's inability to feel any emotion. If you want to cure this from its very roots, click here to watch this entire system that I made for men to end numbness once and for all. Feel alive and excited again.